I'm willing to bet you've never seen Christmas cards used like this before. Today, I'm repurposing inexpensive Christmas cards from Dollar Tree and Amazon, but you can use whatever cards you have on hand. And we're turning them into darling decor and gift ideas that are super easy and so budget friendly. And be sure to stick around until the end, because I saved up all my leftover card scraps and used them in one final project. And honestly, it ended up being my favorite. So let's get started.
For this first project, look for Christmas cards that have a big character or person on the front. Once you find some you like, just cut out those images. I like to leave a tiny border, maybe a 1/16 of an inch around the image. It looks nicer and it's so much faster than trying to cut right on the edge. Next, cut out the faces of your family members from photos, or even better, just print out their faces. I usually measure the face on the Christmas card character so I can print out the family faces in about the same size. And I always print out a few extras, some a little smaller, some a little bigger, because getting the size just right makes a big difference. Then just use a glue stick to attach your family's faces right over the characters' faces. You may want to make some cuts in the Christmas card along the hairline so that the face fits perfectly. You could add a loop of ribbon to the top and turn these into ornaments, but I'm using mine as funny place cards for the dinner table. To make them stand up, I just cut a slit across the top of an old wine cork and slid the card right in. This next project makes a cute stocking stuffer or teacher gift. Open up a Christmas card and on the back half, use a ruler to score a line about a half an inch away from the center fold. Crease along that score line, and that gives you the shape of a little book cover. Then fold the back half over to the front, mark where the two edges meet, and trim off that extra strip so that the front and back covers are the same size. Since I'm adding Post-its inside, I trimmed a little off the top and bottom of the card so the cover would be just slightly bigger than the pad. Then I hot glued the top edge of the Post-its right onto the spine of the little book cover. My spine was wide enough that I could actually fit two pads in there. I bought a package of red and green Post-its at Dollar Tree for just $1.25. To dress it up a little, I hot glued a strip of red ribbon to the inside of the front cover and another one to the back. For a cleaner finish, I cut a small scrap from the Christmas card and glued it over the raw edge of the ribbon on both sides. Now the little book can be tied shut, and there's just enough room to tuck in a pin. This cute green one is also from Dollar Tree. This next idea ended up being one of my favorites. I found this little hinged wood box at Dollar Tree for $1.25 and gave it a coat of green chalk paint. Then I grabbed a Christmas card, also from Dollar Tree, that had a fireplace scene on the front. Actually, all the cards I'm using today came either from Dollar Tree or Amazon, so you can recreate these projects exactly if you want to. I cut out the fireplace image, trimmed it to fit inside the lid, and then used spray adhesive to attach it. Then I took the verse from the inside of the card and adhered it into the bottom of the box. To dress up the little fireplace scene, I cut a tiny lantern and a stocking from another Dollar Tree card. Then I added some double-sided foam tape to the back so they'd pop up and give the whole scene a nice three-dimensional look. For the outside lid, I cut a pine cone image from another Dollar Tree card. This one was one of those money holder cards. Once I had it trimmed to the size I wanted, I pressed packing tape onto the back of the card and peeled it off. I did that a couple of times to thin the paper. I really recommend this hack anytime you're planning to decoupage a Christmas card image with a water-based product like Mod Podge because thick paper can bubble so easily. Then I brushed Mod Podge onto the box lid and onto the back of the image, pressed it in place, and rolled over it with a brayer. I usually let it dry for a bit and then come back with a top coat of Mod Podge over the front. Once that's dry, I take a sanding block around the edges to soften them and make the image look more natural. And finally, I added a little clear wax over the painted areas to seal and protect the chalk paint. Now, here comes the fun part. We're going to fill this little box with matches. I think this makes such a cute gift to pair with a candle. Just remember to cut the striker strips off a matchbox and glue them somewhere on the wood box. I put mine on the back. If you want an even more budget-friendly add-on to your candle gift, you can just cut images from Christmas cards and decoupage them onto the front and back of a matchbox. You can use spray adhesive or Mod Podge, either one works. Once they're attached, lightly sand the edges so it looks like the matchbox actually came that way. This next idea is so fun and so easy. Grab a set of those round magnetic tins from Dollar Tree. Place the tin over the Christmas card image you want to use. I really love snowy scenes for this. Trace around it, cut out the circle, and glue it inside the tin with a glue stick. After that, you can decorate the inside edge with a pipe cleaner or any little trim if you like. Then dress up the outside of the tin with more trim or washi tape. Add a little fake snow inside. Those tiny styrofoam beads or the powdery kind both work great. And when you put the lid back on, I like to add a tiny bit of hot glue so it stays put and the snow doesn't spill out. I was really surprised at how cute this next project turned out. You can use a frame you already have or pick one up at Dollar Tree like the one I'm using. Since my frame was unfinished wood, I gave it a quick coat of chalk paint in a color that coordinated with the Christmas card I wanted to use. This was another Dollar Tree card with a lovely horse-drawn sleigh on the front. And as a bonus, part of the image was already cut out for me. I attached the image across the bottom of the frame with spray adhesive, then flipped the frame over and trimmed off any extra paper hanging past the edges. After that, I lightly distressed the outer edges with sandpaper. Then I brushed on a light coat of Mod Podge over the whole frame and sprinkled iridescent glitter over both the frame and the Christmas card image for a snowy effect. At this point, it was ready for a photo, but instead of adding a picture, I cut out another section from the card and slipped it inside to create a pretty piece of Christmas decor. For this next idea, I picked up a small wooden birdhouse from Dollar Tree and two identical Hallmark Christmas cards from their 2 for $1 section. I placed the house over the parts of the card I wanted to use, traced each side, and cut out those shapes, and then adhered them to the 4 sides. I also snipped off the little bird perch before adding anything because I wanted this to look like a tiny Christmas village house, not a birdhouse. Then I cut a large rectangle from the card, a snowy sky image, and trimmed it to fit over the roof. I adhered all the pieces with spray adhesive and used a sanding block around the edges to give everything a more natural finish to look. To dress up the front of the little house, I cut out a small snowman and a couple of trees from that same card and attached them to the front of the house with double sided foam tape so that they'd pop out and give it that 3D effect. Then I hot glued some tiny pom pom trim around the roof line, and I added a white chenille stem around the wooden base. Finally, I brushed Mod Podge onto the base inside the chenille stem, and I also brushed Mod Podge onto the roof. While the Mod Podge was still wet, I sprinkled on some powdery snow and shook off the excess. This next project works great with any simple wooden box, like the ones from Dollar Tree. But I had this thrifted shadow box in my stash, so I decided to use that instead. I popped the box off the frame by tapping a screwdriver along the seam. But before I could start decorating it for Christmas, I had to pull out the plastic zebra and remove as much of the craft paper inside as I could. I chose another Dollar Tree card, this one with a landscape scene. I cut it to fit the back of the box and used spray adhesive to attach it in place. It probably would have been easier if I had painted the inside of the box first, because once the background was in, I realized I also needed to cover the sides. So alternately, I cut some plain blue strips from the card and used those to line the sides, attaching them with spray adhesive. But I didn't love the seam where the pieces met, so I hot glued some sparkly tinsel ribbon along all four sides to hide that joint. Since the Christmas card is doing most of the decorative work here, I really only needed a few finishing touches to bring the whole piece up a notch. I hot glued some bottle brush trees and a tiny deer figurine that mimicked the landscape. Then I brushed Mod Podge across the bottom of the box, around the trees and the deer, and sprinkled on some powdery fake snow. To reattach the frame to the shadow box, I brushed wood glue onto the raw wood edge of the box and pressed the frame back in place. When I looked through the glass from the front, I could see a bit of the bare wood edge of the box. So I hot glued a white chenille stem along the inner edge of the frame to hide it, and it actually added a really nice wintry touch. Using old Christmas cards to make bookmarks isn't a brand new idea, but I think the ones I came up with add a really fun twist to it. Look for cards with funny cartoon characters or cute animal faces, like this Dollar Tree card. Cut long strips from the back of your card and then dress them up with washi tape, Christmas ribbon, or scrapbook paper. Hot glue the little faces you cut out onto the top of each strip, and then add any embellishments you like. I added tiny pom-poms to the animals' hats and glued on little coordinating bows. These turn out so adorable, and they make the perfect add-on to a book you're gifting. And they look so cute peeking out over the top of the pages. The idea of making gift tags from old Christmas cards has been around forever, but it's still such a good idea. Instead of cutting squares or rectangles, I like to cut out specific images from the card fronts. If you want to dress them up a bit more, use a glue stick to attach the cutouts to coordinating scrapbook paper, and then trim around them to create a pretty border. That also makes the back of the tag look pretty. Punch a hole at the top and tie on some string, or run the string through a big darning needle and thread it through for a really clean look. You can write to and from on the back, or just leave them blank if you prefer. Here's a fun way to sneak a little Christmas decor into your home in an unexpected spot. Cover old light switch plate covers with Christmas cards. The ones I'm using have a raised border with an inset center, which makes them super easy to decorate. Just cut your Christmas card image to fit that inset area. Adhere it with Mod Podge or spray adhesive and roll over it with a brayer to make sure it's firmly adhered. For the plate cover with 2 toggle openings, I used a landscape scene and I cut around the tops of the images so that when I glued it down, the part of the plate cover showing above the card became the sky behind the landscape scene. I also glued some fake snow along the bottom of the card. Once the glue is dry, flip the plate cover over and use an X-Acto knife or a utility knife to cut out the openings. You might want to use a little sandpaper to smooth the edges, and then use something pointed to poke out the screw holes. I think these are actually pancake molds, but cookie cutters work just as well for this idea. Place the shape over the front of your Christmas card, trace around it, and cut it out. Make sure you cut outside your pencil line so the shape doesn't end up being too small. Then run a thin line of hot glue along the edge of the mold and press your cutout face down into the glue. Now go back and run another line of hot glue along the outer edge. Press a chenille stem into that glue, working your way all the way around the shape. It adds a nice decorative touch and also reinforces that seam. Or for a different look, you can attach the pipe cleaner or trim along the inside edge of the mold instead. Once the card is firmly attached to the mold, you can have fun adding little embellishments. I cut out words from the cards and attach them with double-sided foam tape. You can also add miniature trees, sparkly little styrofoam balls. Basically, anything from the Christmas Village miniatures works great. And of course, a little fake snow finishes it off perfectly. Here is an easy idea for creating some cute Christmas decor. Use cards that have a full-bodied character or person on the cover, like this snowman card from Dollar Tree. Cut out that shape. However, keep the bottom edge as large and straight as possible. To make the figure sturdier, adhere it to a piece of thin cardboard, the kind used to make cereal and cracker boxes. To make the figure stand up, cut out a small rectangle of cardboard and score a line about 1/2 inch from the end. Hot glue the area above the scored line to the back of your character to create a kickstand. Embellish the card with whatever you have on hand. I covered the bird and scarf with colored glitter. This is the perfect little shelf sitter to add a touch of Christmas to your regular decor. This next idea is probably the easiest and most versatile project of them all. Use a card with a big, pretty image and then cut off any words along the top and bottom edges. You can cut straight across, or for a more decorative look, cut around the top of the design. Then run a bead of hot glue along the inside, bottom, and right-hand side of the card to close it and create a pocket. Then, if you want, you can embellish it with simple crafting supplies like glitter, pom-poms, or ribbon, or hot glue the ends of a Chanel stem inside the pocket edges to create a handle. Now turn this into a fun little gift by filling it with things like a packet of hot cocoa mix and a candy cane, tissues and chapstick, or a notepad and marker. I think this makes the perfect little gift for so many different people. Now I want to make use of the scraps left over from cutting up the cards I used in previous projects. At first, I hoped to make a wreath, but I soon realized I didn't have nearly enough cards for that. So instead, I grabbed a mat for an 8x10 picture frame. After I had cut several pieces, I began randomly attaching them to the mat using glue stick. To keep it interesting, I cut pieces in various sizes and shapes to best highlight the pictures. I also cut out a few words. Once the mat was completely covered, I cut out some very small images like holly leaves and Santa's belt buckle and glued these over some of the seams. I absolutely love how this turned out, and I will definitely be doing this project again. I found an 8x10 frame at the thrift store and added another Christmas card I had on hand inside the mat. And for a unique way to hang it, I screwed 2 little eye hooks into the top of the frame and made a hanging loop with some gold velvet ribbon. If you have another clever use for old Christmas cards, tell me in the comments. I love hearing your ideas. And if you enjoyed today's video, I'll link another one I think you'll like, full of even more budget-friendly Christmas ideas. Thanks so much for watching today. Hope to see you next week.